Hello and welcome to the first of probably many tutorials about how to do the UVs, create the texture map inside of Maya. I've decided that I'm going to take this in a way where I'll show you what needs to be done and how to do that exactly, and hopefully through just doing the step-by-step process you'll get a feeling or understanding of how UVs work inside of Maya and other 3D applications. So at this point I no longer need my reference images, so I'm just going to turn them off by clicking on the battleship looking button to turn them off in the 4 views. Okay, so here we have the 3D representation of our model. Underneath the Polygon tab, there is a option to open up the UV texture editor. This is the 2D version of my pig. If I wanted to put a texture on this pig, for example, a checkered texture, the UV texture editor has everything to do with how your model will, how the textures will look on your model. If you had no textures on your model, then this would be totally unnecessary. But we always want to have texture on our model so that we can display how it looks. Okay, so I press 6 to show the textured model, or the checkered board, and then this chrome or brass looking ball will switch to high quality so I can see the detail on the checker board. Okay, so at this point my checkerboards are all different sizes. Right here they're stretching a little, here they're really long, here, this here on the front of the torso is where they actually look halfway decent. And how do you know how they'll look? How a texture will lay out? You really have no way of knowing from the get-go, and so it's inside of the UV texture editor that will show you how to see that. So inside of here we create something called shells or islands. And well, let me just get started. I'm going to do a create UV and go to the dotted line there to open up this box, and we'll keep it open. So if I go to the planar mapping options and go to X axis, hey, I got a text, sorry, hit apply. In here it has taken a projection picture of the pig, and then so this is how the checkerboard will be laying out. Then you can see here how it is displayed on here. They look great on the side, but as we go around to the front it stretches them and they look distorted. So when we go to paint a texture inside of Photoshop, it would be distorted in these areas of distortion. So if I switch to Y and do a projection that way, now it's taking a projection from the top and it's a bit worse. The checkerboard looks great from here, but going down it doesn't look that great. Let's go to Z. If I hit apply, now the whole front looks better. It looks a little stretched on the sides and the back looks good. So this is a good starting point just to get an idea of how our guy might look in 2D. So here we have how he's looking. But there are a couple of problems with this. First of all, we have the problem of the stretching. Our second problem is that the front of our character, here, the front, and the back of our character are in the same exact place, which means if we were to paint high on his stomach in Photoshop, then on the back of his stomach we would see IH. So it would reverse the image. We can tell if an image is reversed by pressing this button. If there are purple or red squares, there are some reversed ones. we want all of them to end up being blue. So if I just go to edge mode, double click this edge, it will create a border around my entire character. Inside of the UV texture editor, I can cut that and it now creates a seam. So I'm not cutting the model stays 3D and it doesn't separate the vertices or anything. This vertice still is in the same spot. But inside here now, I can go to the select shell tool, select and move, and I can pull this apart. So here I have the front of my character, and here is the back of my character. So as I move this inside here, you can see how the back is shifting, but not the front. So when you create UV shells, you want to flip the red ones. To flip this, I have a horizontal or a vertical flip. I'll flip it horizontally. Okay, now we know that it's the right side out because it's blue. That's just how it goes. So now that we have blue and blue, we have the first step done, which is it's facing the right direction. Okay. Now the other problem that we have is that we have these stretched areas. Okay. Now there's a great tool in Maya called the Smooth UV tool. When you select that and you click and drag on the word you unfold, it tries to unfold the character as best as it can. And here, now there's not as much stretching. Okay, I could go to this one. If I press shift, I go to UV mode, I can select these. If I press shift period, I can grow the selection. And I'll just press it until it's selected the whole thing. And then I still have the UV smooth tool selected, so I'll just grab unfold and pull it apart. Okay, so now we have eliminated the stretching by the magic of this wonderful tool, but there are still some problems. The problem now that we deal with is called seams. All around, if I press this button here, it'll turn on the seams. So all around the character, everywhere that we have cut it inside the UV editor, it has a seam. Okay? And seams are problems because if we wanted, say for example, to put a cut across his arm in Photoshop, and we go and paint the line right here, then we don't know where that line starts back up on this side. Or is it on this side? So it gets confusing, and I could try to move this, and if you look on the left, the checkerboards, I could try to line up the checkerboards, but that's still not going to be, this black box is not the same as this one. They're in different locations here on the board. So I would want this black checker box to be lined up with the other part of the arm. Okay, so that issue is called the seams of our character. So as close and as nice as this looks, we want to try to avoid seams in specific areas. And some seams are okay in other areas. For example, in this character, it would be okay to put a seam going around the arm right here. So to cut a seam, in the 3D view, you double click an edge loop, and I can look around and see that it's selected the entire edge loop. And now it shows where that edge is selected in this view. And now I can cut using the scissors, and I've just cut a seam. Doing that makes both of these new islands now. So I could pull this apart, move it over here, pull this apart, and move it over here. Okay, so when we want to sew back a seam, you just select the edges in the 3D view that you want to sew back together. We want to eliminate the seam on this side. So I'm just holding shift, selecting this area, and now it has selected those edges here. I could also select the edges in this view. Okay, And then this here is the Move and Sew tool. By clicking that button, it sews those two sides back together. Now, the seam is gone. There is no seam on the top of the arm. There is still a seam here and going down and underneath. An underside of an arm is a perfectly good place to put a seam. Okay, so now that I have the seam, all the seams eliminated that I can, I want to unfold this or smooth it again. So I'll go to the Smooth tool, click on the word unfold, drag it to the right. I drag that and I click and try it again until it stops moving. So it's there. It's looking the way I would like it to. Okay, and finally, the last part of this tutorial, I just want to show another way that I could have I'll get this other arm to do the same thing. When you create projections of UVs, you do it with the faces of a character. So if I just select these faces of the arm, I could go to Planar Mapping, which is under the Create UVs tab, go to the option box, and I want it to take a projection from the Z direction. Project. Okay, so now it has given me a new projection of this arm, and I can select it. Shift period grows the selection and move it out of the way. Okay, then I can go back to edge mode, double click the edges. Okay, now it's selecting more edges than I want. So in this view I could hold down Control and deselect the edges that I don't need. So now I just have the edges around this, and now I can cut. Cutting it gives it a seam, which allows me to use the Move Shell tool, and I can move this shell out of the way. The red one is flipped, so I want to select the entire shell, Shift period, flip vertically, go back to edge mode, using the Move tool, pressing W on the keyboard. I can select, go to edge, I can select these edges again, press the Move and Sew tool, go to UV mode, select the UVs, smooth the UVs, and unfold. Okay, so just doing this, going through and trying to cut your character apart inside of the 2D view, you're not affecting what the model has done. We haven't cut the arm off inside here. It's still attached. Okay, just practice cutting, flipping, unfolding, and doing those things, and we'll move on to another tutorial at this point.